All right, so real quick before we start the example, this week, information update, math help on WebEx. I have that posted on the homepage. It's going to be Tuesday across. It should be Tuesday and Thursday at 10:25 through 11, and 1 to 1:30. That's just when I'm going to be on WebEx. You're always feel free to email me with your questions, and I'll get back to you as well as on those. So for this week, we're on Tuesday. We're going to be solving inequalities using multiplication. All right, so let's look at a blast from the past. So this is going back to the equations, solving equations using the multiplication division. And you have the two properties, the two rules: multiplication property of equality and multiplication inverse property. All right, so I'm not too concerned with those terms. The two words that I want you to always remember when it comes to solving equations and equalities is inverse operations. All right, because it doesn't matter if it's division or subtraction or division or multiplication, equation or inequality, we always isolate the variable and solve them by doing what we call the inverse operation. So let's look real quick at the examples. So the first one, multiplication property of inequality. So we have x divided by 4 equals 2. So I'm going to multiply x4 times 4 to cross those out because that's divided by 4. And I do the same thing on the other side, 2 times 4, and so these cross each other out, and I'm left with x equals 8. And then for the multiplication inverse property, I don't like that example. I'm going to go with a better one. So I have 3/5. So yeah, 3/5 x equals 60. All right, so what that's saying is I'm going to multiply that 3/5 times its reciprocal, so times 5/3. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Oh, I kind of gave it too big of a one, but oh, I have 5/3, right? And then so these cross each other out, and then 60 times 5. Actually, I can reduce that. So I'm going to divide by 3, and that's 20, and that's 1, and then so 25. 20 times 5 equals 100. All right, so in other words, they use n, I'm going to use x. N equals 100. All right, so that's from equations, but with inequalities, it's the exact same thing. All right, so we have the multiplication property of inequality, and you also have the multiplication inverse property of inequality, but it's really the same thing. Because if you look at x divided by 4, I'm multiplying by that's reciprocal because what it's saying is 1/4, right? So x divided by 4, it's the same thing as 1 divided by 4, is less than 2. And so I'm multiplying it by the reciprocal on both sides. So times 4, 1 times 4, 1. And I'm left with 8. So x is less than 8. All right. So however you want to think about it, we just always know there's a 1 next to a variable. We just don't write it because it's not necessary. And the whole point of algebra, one of the big points of algebra is making problems smaller, more condensed. So we don't need that 1 there. That's what you're doing. You're multiplying it by the reciprocal, really. All right. So let's go ahead and do example number 1. All right. Solve inequalities using multiplication and then graph. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write the inequality. So I have x divided by 5. I do not know why that is doing that. I charged the thing. X divided by 5 is less than or equal to 2. All right, so I wrote the inequality. All right, next I'm going to use the inverse operation. So I'm going to multiply both sides times 5. And these cross each other out. And so I'm left with x is greater than or equal to 10. All right. All right. So now I'm going to graph it. All right, so I'm going to find 10, all right, because that's where I'm basing it off of. Closed circle. All right, x is going to be less than or equal to 10, so x is going to be to the left. It cannot be any higher than 10. All right, so there's my graph. X is less than or equal to 10. All right, now I'm going to check my answer. And like I did last week, I'm going to use both sides of my 10 to see if, check my solution, make sure it's true. All right, so I'm going to write my equation that I started off with. X divided by 5 is less than, x divided by 5 is less than or equal to 2. So I'm going to pick 11, and I'm going to place 11 in place of x. So instead of 11, I'm going to do 11. 11 divided by 5 is greater than or equal to 2. Right, and if I do the inverse operation, let's go ahead. I'm not going to do the inverse operation because I replace it with a variable. So that equals 11/5 would be 2 and 1/5. All right, so am I looking at 2 is equal to 2 and 1/5? All right, is that true? Is x so 2 and 1/5 less than 2? And the answer is no. All right, so that 11 is not good. Now I can check it with 9 just to be safe. So I have 9/5 less than or equal to 2. It's the same thing as 1 and 4/5 less than or equal to 2, and that is true. All right, so that's how you check your answer. All right, so go ahead and do one on your own. Go ahead, try one out, and then resume the next video.